Video A10 helps with place value and also when you're multiplying or dividing by 10, 100 or 1000. So this is a sheet that's actually in your help book now. If we start with the number 1 in the middle, which is in the units column, every time we multiply that 1 by 10, we move one place to the left. So first of all, we move to 10. Multiplying by 10 again, we go to 100. Multiplying by 10 again, we go to 1000, and so forth until you get up to 1,000,000. It's unlikely that you'll need any numbers that are larger than using the millions column. Going the other way, every time you divide by 10, your number moves one place to the right. So 1 would become 0.1, and then 0.01 if you divide by 10 again, and so forth. It's unlikely again that you will need anything smaller than 1,000th, but I've gone down to tenths of thousandths here. It's important also that you know the names of all of the columns, especially the positive ones. Not the positive ones, the ones that go from the units up to 1,000,000. When you're talking about fractions of numbers, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, or possibly tenths of thousandths are useful. So remember, every time you multiply by 10, you go one place to the left. Every time you divide by 10, you go one place to the right. You'll also need those placeholder zeros to fill in all of the gaps. Also in your help book you've got a sheet that looks like it's got millions of cubes in. The right hand side is based on the kind of cubes that your children will probably have been seeing at school when they've been learning about place value. So we start with a unit, the very tiniest cube, normally about a centimetre cube, so it will easily fit in your hand. When you multiply that by 10, you get a 10. When you've got 10 tens, you get 100. When you've got 10 hundreds, you get 1,000, and you can see the 1 moving along the columns here. If I were to pan out to the sheet that they've actually got in their books, we've then gone from 1,000 to 10 of those stacked up here, which makes a 10,000. 10 lots of 10,000 would make 100,000, an enormous number to actually try and imagine in your mind. And as you can see here, I've run out of space to try and make 1,000,000 for the children. So just imagine 10 of these bits here, stacked up side by side to make the most enormous cube you've ever imagined. So here again you can see the 1 moving along the columns and placeholders being put in. Okay. If we move on from here, the kind of questions that you're going to come across are where you're asked to multiply or divide by 10, 100 or 1,000. So here's an example here. For each of these examples I'm going to start with 123. That's based in the hundreds, the tens and the units column. If we're timesing by 10, every digit moves one place to the left, and here we need to fill in our placeholder 0 to give an answer of 1,230. So put your comma in, start on the right hand side and count back 1, 2, 3 places, and that's where your comma would go. Helps you to say the number out loud, 1,230. You can hear the breath where the comma would be. If you're looking at multiplying by 100, of course you move 2 places to the left for each digit. So the 123 initially becomes 1,230 when you times by 10. When you times by 10 again, that's 2 places. You get this number at the bottom here, and our comma would go 1, 2, 3 places here. So to read that number out, you'd say 12,300. The last one for multiplying is multiplying by 1,000. This is 3 places to the left. So just like we did before, multiply by 10, multiply by 10 again, multiply by 10 again. Your comma would go in here to give 123,000. Children sometimes get confused on how many places they've got to move it. So one thing I say to them is count the zeros in the number that you're timesing by. If there are 3 zeros, that means 3 places. When it comes to division, very similar, but you go to the right instead. So here, 123 would become 12.3. Notice the decimal point that is in each of these numbers. So our 3 goes into the tenths column. Dividing by 100, you've guessed it, 2 places to the right because there are 2 zeros. So we go from 123 to 12.3 to 1.23. There's our final answer. Dividing by 1,000, we go from 123 to 12.3, that's dividing by 10. 1.23, that's dividing by another 10 or dividing by 100. And 0.123 for our final answer. Notice I've inserted a placeholder 0 here because there was nothing left in that column. Finally, in your folder you will find one of these, a little laminated sheet that's quite useful if you want to have a go but not do it on paper. So if you just use a normal whiteboard marker, you can fill in the number in the top row and then you can move it however many columns you want to, just to prove which column each of the digits is going into. So I hope that's going to be useful. Keep it in your folder at all times. If you get it out for your homework, make sure you pop it back in afterwards. Hope this video has been helpful.